Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Ryan with Propelio, and today's Titanium Tuesday. Obviously, I'm not RJ. Cassie and RJ are actually taking a trip to Utah, so I'm pitching in for them. Today on the show, I've got Jason Bible, and I've got Casey Dehle going to help me out with a little co-hosting duties. Today, we're going to be talking about pivoting, how to pivot, when to pivot, and what pivoting even is in the real estate business. So stick around. Hang out with us, comment below, ask questions, and let's have some fun. We'll see you back in a minute. What's going on, everybody? So we got Jason Bible, Casey Dehle. What's up?
What's going on? So I was just driving around the neighborhood, saw the sign on the shop and just pulled in.
We need a guest ASAP.
He was looking for RJ, but
yeah. I know everybody on Titanium Tuesday would much rather see RJ, but you know, it's all good. We'll still have fun. So before we get into who you are and what this discussion is, let's talk about what pivoting is and why it's important, and then we'll get to you of why you're actually relevant to talk about this, and then we'll get back to the pivoting. So basically a short teaser, who you are, and then let's get to the meat.
Well, my name is Jason Bible. I have fixed and flipped over 500 houses over the last couple of years, about 6 years now. Been a full-time real estate investor since 2013, and I'll tell you the reason. I think the most important thing with regards to pivot is markets change.
Yep.
So you'll hear some real estate gurus that'll say, "Oh, markets change every couple of years. The cycle's every 5 to 10 years. Some say 20." I think it's 90 days. Like if you're really in this business, the business changes about every 90 days, and so you've got to be flexible enough where you can change, whether it's wholesaling or flipping at different price points and that sort of thing. So that's what I see as a pivot, at least in my mind, in my business.
And it's actually a very relevant conversation to have right now, because Daniel on his show in the past few weeks, in the next couple of weeks, is talking about you are not a wholesaler and how yes, wholesaling is just a tool in the toolbox, but you need to be able to explore flipping and renting and the commercial stuff. So I mean, that's not so much as pivoting. That's just like, hey, have multiple strategies. So for pivoting, that's obviously not. That's a whole different thing. That's like focusing direction.
Yeah. So when I look at, I'll give you a good example. So you guys up here in this market. A lot of your new construction has slowed down like this. I mean, it's almost stopped, right? Houses above 300, 400,000. So the question I think a lot of developers are asking themselves is, how are we going to pay the bills at the end of the month, right? Like, what is that going to look like? I think there are single family real estate investors in the fix and flip space in Houston that jumped in right after Hurricane Harvey that thought they were going to make a killing on these flood houses, and now these things are sitting. So now what's the next strategy, right? Like how are we going to get out of these short-term deals? Do we Airbnb? Do we rent these things, even though they probably are not going to rent? They're $500,000-$600,000 houses that rent for $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Do they do an owner finance play? Can they bring in different investors from out of state that just want to hold on to these things, so you can do an equity participation mortgage, those sorts of things? I think when I look at pivoting, I look at it as a response to what's going on in the marketplace. There is no business that's immune to changes in market. I don't care how big the business is, industry changes, the market changes. So you really have to be able to be a little bit more flexible in your business to be able to respond to those changes.
But to me though, when you say 90 days, that seems like super micro.
Yeah.
I don't know, it didn't seem like 90 days gives you enough time on the ground to even know what the hell's going on.
Or is it a matter of having your business, because most people when they set out to have a business, right, they're thinking, I'm gonna create this LLC and it's only gonna fix and flip. Create this LLC and it can do this. Are you talking about having the structure in order to switch strategies in place, or are you talking about actually being able to kind of stick to one and just kind of change how you move the properties? How do you buffer for 90
days? I think
days?
the latter, what you say there, makes sense in the macro, right? We've got to have, our business has to be structured in such a way that it's flexible to the demands of the marketplace. That makes total sense. So let me explain what it looks like in real time. So when we went into a number of these neighborhoods in Houston that had experienced a massive amount of flooding, we knew that we had to get in, rehab, and get out as fast as possible. You see this.
When you say but why is that?
Because we can look at this wasn't the first time we've had flooding in Houston, right? That's probably a good way to put it, right?
So you're more worried about that. Okay, I need to get in, get out because there's a possibility of another flood wiping my investment out.
Here's what happens. There's a flood, right? And there's this collapse in obviously sales because houses are flooded, right? Unless you're selling flooded houses to real estate investors, the retail market is gone. What happens is the market comes back real quick. There's this spike. It lasts about 90 days, and then the market just plummets. So there's all this pent-up demand. You get in there, rehab it, you're the first investor on the market. Bam, house is on the market, you're sold and out. Then what happens is homeowners start looking around going, we didn't have flood insurance, or I got my flood insurance check, and I don't want to deal with the flood. Like, I don't want to deal with the rehab. I don't want to deal with the possibility of a second flood. So they start liquidating.
So something like that, would that be, and I don't know if this is a term, but I'm going to claim it if it's not, but like a situational pivot? Like, because
situational
I'm
pivot.
just saying, like, because if you're a wholesaler day in,
true.
day out, and then you see all this opportunity for all this flipping, you could situational pivot,
there you go.
To this market. To
take advantage
of that 90-day window you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Is
that a thing?
Somebody Google that. Somebody Google it up.
Ryan Harper.
Yeah. You know what happens? It was a change in the marketplace. A lot of people assume marketplace is an economic term. Well, you could have a storm that blows in and it just completely blows out, right? Mm-hmm. You could have Toyota. You guys have Toyotas in Plano? Mm-hmm. So you could have Toyota decide tomorrow, you know what? We're done building all this stuff out here. In fact, we're going to move all of our people to California.
Or you could have Amazon
pull out
of New York
and come to North Texas.
That's right.
What's up, Amazon?
Yeah, come on, Amazon.
We have so many investors.
Yeah, I know. So that could totally happen, right? And it has an impact in those little markets. When you look at markets as big as DFW, as big as Houston, I'll be in LA this weekend, so it's like as big as LA. And Amazon moving in or out in the macro of that environment, in that market, doesn't have a huge impact. Mm-hmm. But to the neighborhoods around there, to the realtors that are focused on that zip code, to the landlords that buy and hold there, to the guys that are and gals that are flipping there, it's a huge deal. People forget how big these Texas markets are. They are enormous, right? It's not like I'm in Port St. Lucie, Florida, right? I mean, this market is just gigantic. So you have these little upsets in these marketplaces, and you've got to be flexible enough if you are focused on those little markets to generate business.
But just to go back to the theme of the day of pivoting, is flexibility and pivoting the same thing? Or because when I hear pivoting, I'm thinking, forgive me, but I'm like, hey, I really like this girl. I like this girl instead. I know, typical Ryan.
Well, there's reactive and there's proactive pivoting, right? So I think a lot of people end up reacting to it, and maybe they're not prepared because they haven't really focused on learning other strategies. But then there's proactive, which you seem to be a little bit more keen to because you're seeing it cycle in certain ways, and you're prepared to maybe, sell off all your businesses and go a different route. So I think that's two different sides to it.
I'll give you another example. So we bought a house down in Bear Creek, which is synonymous with flooding in Houston. And we took this house, and it only flooded once, bought it for about 50, we put 55, 60 into it, whatever, about 110, 115 into it. It's renting for $1,400, $1,500 a month. Before the storm, it was worth 140. I think this summer it's going to be worth about 170. The problem is that even though that was a flooded neighborhood, but it's below that median home price, the appreciation is so rapid, taxes and insurance are getting such that it really doesn't make sense to hold on to it. However, I want to hold on to it as long as I can. Where you really make money in the single family rental business is appreciation. So we're pivoting to Airbnb. So can we Airbnb this thing for another 2 to 3 years, even if we just break even? Like, it's totally worth it just for the appreciation alone to hold on to it to a little bit longer. That little house that was worth 140 before Hurricane Harvey, by the time we sell it in 5 or 6 years, will be a $250,000 house, and we're in for 110, 115. So to make that pivot now, when you talk about proactive versus reactive, I think that's a good point, because the challenge with a lot of real estate investors is now we've gone from a rental property that we're turning into essentially a small hotel. So do I have the right financing in place to make that transition? Do I have the right insurance to make that transition? Do I have the right operations? Like, I can hand over my properties to a really great property management company in Houston, but they don't do Airbnb. So who's going to manage the Airbnb piece? And how do I maintain operational excellence in Airbnb? Because you need those 5-star reviews and all that other stuff to be able to maximize my profits in Airbnb, so I can hold on to that property for as long as I can.
So what I'm hearing for me though is, like, when you hear pivoting or why the pivoting, it all comes down to math. Like, in the terms of, like, you take the emotional component out of it, you take the foresight component, you're just looking at straight math.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I saw like an old video of you in your lifestyle days of like boom, 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 boom. And like the whole reason of going to an Airbnb is like, you know, well, yeah, I can make money over here, but it doesn't make sense, business sense. Like, you know, like Grant always says, doesn't make business sense. I can go to Airbnb, I could break even and collect the appreciation, or I could lose my ass every day.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you've got those. And personally,
that was a nugget, by the way.
Yeah, that was a nugget.
You know,
personally,
pivoting is about math.
Pivoting's about math, and don't lose your ass, right?
Yeah, don't lose your ass.
Oh, that's a great quote.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that. You can put us both on, on the byline.
It's like the byline, Ryan and Jason.
Yeah, I can tell you, just from one house alone, I wrote a nearly $250,000 check at closing. And after I enjoyed...
Like to buy or to get out?
No, to get out.
Okay.
I wrote a $225,000 check.
Was it a boathouse?
No, it was it was before the storm. It was a near $1 million house in Memorial that flooded, and you know, you learn a lot of lessons about life when you have to write a check that big just to get out of a deal, right? I mean, to lose $225,000 on one house, but going back, I don't think we could have. I think our only pivot, if you will, and there really wasn't much of a pivot there, was literally mark this thing down as fast as humanly possible.
To be first to the marketplace.
Just to get out. Just get out. And a lot of people miss that. They hold on to the losers too long.
Right. Well, and we talk about that a lot here is again, take, and we just talked about it, get the motion out of it. And if it's going to be a loser, take the loss and move on. Don't hold on to the headache. Because we talk about all the time about how, you know, if you meet an investor in this business that's never lost money doing deals, they're either A, full of shit, or B, they've only done like 3 deals.
So I love how you brought that up. There's somebody I know who I can
Have you ever lost money?
Well, I've done more than 3 deals. I don't think we almost did on one. The only saving grace we had was that the contractor screwed up for so long that the market shifted. And we ended up getting a comp 30,000 more. Otherwise, we probably would have lost money on that deal. But that was just, I mean, it was literally 30 to 60 days that changed it.
The appreciation bailed you out, right?
It did, absolutely.
So there's a gentleman that I call a friend of mine, and he's an owner of a self-directed IRA company. And he told me one time,
you could plug. It's not going to scare me enough.
Well, no, it's Quest. Obviously, Quincy and I were chatting one day.
I mean, they have a show on Friday.
Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know.
We love Quest.
I have no idea who sponsors. I mention people, they get all mad after the show
we don't
anyway.
care.
So okay, good. As long as you don't care, I'll mention names. So Quincy and I were chatting one day, and he said, you know, when we
By the way, Quest, that'll be $1,000.
That's what we're going to check. So one of the things Quincy says, and I think it's incredibly brilliant. He says he's got a lot of these one-liners that are just incredibly brilliant. And one of the things he said, if I'm talking to somebody who we as in his family lends money, if you guys have ever been to any of us private lender events, Quincy obviously lends money, and Quest has a retirement accounts that's self-directed as well and all that. And he says, you know, whenever we go in to do a real estate deal, if the person I'm doing a deal with has never lost money, in the back of my mind I'm thinking they're either lying or they don't have enough experience.
Right.
And when he said
that's a
that,
much more eloquent way than what I said.
He's got a way with words, he really does, right? But he's right. I mean, if I run into somebody who's like, oh, I've been in this 10 years and never lost money, I'm like, you're either not experienced or you're lying to me.
Yeah.
So which one, you tell me which one it is, because neither one of them are great, right?
Yeah, and there's no reason to be pessimistic. You don't have to walk into networking events with a chip on your shoulder going,
right.
Oh, Casey's full of crap or Jason's full of crap. It's just in the back of your head go, noted.
I like how investors wear it as a badge of honor too. They're like, because I think that you can really tell the difference between people who are gaining knowledge and experience when they're like, yeah, man, I lost 20 grand on the deal. It's like, I feel
we say, like, if you're seeking, and we need to get back on pace here, but if you're seeking out private capital, and I'm like, hey, Jason, will you fund this next deal? And you're like, okay, cool, show me some HUDs. And I show you 3 HUDs where win-win-win, or I show you this one HUD where I lost my ass, but my lender got paid.
Yeah.
Which one's more valuable?
I will tell you one of the things we're doing right now.
That was another nugget, by the way.
That was a great nugget. I will tell you this: everyone who has been a lender for us, no one has lost money, and we've paid them all what they were.
You have
so
to.
even though we lost money, they got a check at closing.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, the first one we ever lost money on was a big one, and I was chatting with him a couple of weeks later. We were doing another deal, and he said, "Jason, that deal we just did the payoff on? I mean, y'all held that a long time." And I said, "Yeah, Bob, we lost $125,000 on it." He goes, "Oh." He goes, I said, "You didn't look at the bottom of the HUD?" He said, "No, I just made sure our payoff was right." And he said, "Look, we could have worked on something. We could have gotten rid of some of the interest." And I'm like, "No, we made a commitment to you that we're going to pay you this interest, and we were going to protect your principal, and that's just how the deal goes." And to this day, he's the guy that says, "Look, if you need money anywhere, you send me the wiring instructions, we'll figure it out later." And what I think a lot of real estate investors miss is when we talk about relationships in real estate, that's what a relationship is. Like, people think relationships in real estate is, hey, you and I are hanging out at the bar drinking beers and commiserating about real estate stories or whatever, right? That's not building a relationship. A building a relationship is doing business, like trading in commerce. Yeah. And when you build that trust, the question one of my business partners, Rob, says all the time: can you call somebody tonight at midnight to fund a deal at 8 o'clock in the morning, and how much money could you raise literally in 6 hours? No docs, nothing. Like, how much money could you raise? That's how you determine how robust your network is. Because you guys are going to, I'm sure y'all have gotten deals before that literally need to close tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't have time to build a big pro forma. And we just know intuitively, as real estate investors, you look at that and you go, that's a deal.
And that's why reputation and relationships are so strong. And that's why bridges are so important in this business. And again, I don't want to tangent too far, but like, if you were like relentlessly are always calling people out, or always burning bridges, or always just trying to light somebody on fire for whatever, people run away from that.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And it's like, do you want to do business with somebody? But I mean, there is a level of authenticity.
Yeah,
that one.
More coffee.
Yeah. You got to be authentic, and you got to be true to yourself. So if that's yourself, game on, girlfriend.
Yeah.
But like, at the same, but I mean, my personal brand is not to be like, Jason Bible's a fraud. You know, I'm like, it's
well,
like.
And I honestly can attest, like, being in it for just over a year now, that is solely what contributed to our success. And there's people that have been in it just as long as my husband and I that are really just not doing anything. And I don't see them anywhere. I don't see them making, those kinds of connections and network in any shape or form. And that's something that you always speak on, is that deep network that you have to have. Yeah. And I think that's also what's going to allow you to pivot well.
Thank you.
Well, that's
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
She's like,
look at that.
Get back to the conversation.
She's the show transitioner. Well, what was so funny is we built this house buying company. We spent $1 million a year on marketing. I mean,
This was
Houston House Buyers. This was like all that stuff. We were spending $1 million a year in marketing. And
which is a lot.
That's a chunk of change. Yeah. Although I'll tell you what, you spend that kind of money, and Click to Mail and Google don't even send you like a Christmas card. Like, you get a postcard, because $1 million of those people.
What do you need to get?
Look,
I don't know.
What's the spend to get a gift from Google?
I'll give you a gift card.
I don't know.
Here's a $5 Starbucks card.
At least like a fruit basket or something at the end of the year. So I think that when we built this giant marketing machine, right, direct to consumer marketing. And one of the big challenges we had in our business that we talked about a lot of it, but we never built a program around it, is really maximizing that network. And again, I'll go back to something that Quincy said. When I would be on those panels, he and I would chat before and afterwards, and he would say, Jason, your net worth is a direct correlation to your network. And I'm like, well, yeah, I got a huge network, but you've got to be able to leverage that network. And a lot of the deals I'm doing now, they're coming through that network. It's kind of crazy. I sold the companies in September, and then I just got on Facebook, and I'm like, guys, I'm buying real estate. Just send me what you got. And it's not like people didn't know I was buying real estate before, but the deals I'm getting now are crazy. We've added nearly $2 million in net worth, like in 90 days. And I never had that rapid accumulation of wealth the prior 6 years.
So let's talk about because you were at Right Path, you were at Houston House Buyers, and you're spending that much money, and you pivoted.
Yeah.
Quickly.
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 You know,
Should we talk about the meltdown?
We'll
that
talk
got
about
you
the
there?
meltdown. We'll talk about the meltdown.
And this was like the catalyst for the initial pivot.
Yeah.
And
So
for you
I was in
personally.
I was in LA about a year ago. I do an event down there. I talk at a bunch of different events in LA, a bunch of real estate clubs, and then a buddy of mine, Rob, has an event that he does for out-of-state investors. And so I fly in and I do the Texas update, like why you should invest in Texas. And so I was doing this Texas update, and I was talking about a property on 7470 Wood Oak. So I'll say it again for all you guys who got MLS access. Type in 7470.
Or Propelio access.
Or Propelio. Sorry, yeah, Propelio access. I
Same
keep forgetting
thing.
you guys get comps because we just use y'all for marketing. So I always forget you guys have comp stuff too. So in any case, 7470 Wood Oak. We bought the house in I can't remember if it was late 13 or late 14, but we bought around 13, 14. I think we bought it for like 70 and some change, put another 10 or 12 in it. Pretty cute little house, right up off of 290 inside the Beltway on the east side of 290. So we were into this thing for like 80 and some change, and we sold it for $119,000, like, I don't know, 60, 90 days later. And we were running around like, we're big time real estate investors. I mean, we were doing 10 or 20 of these things a month. I mean, we were cranking out the deals, right? And so we're patting each other on the back, yay, go us, we're killing it. So I'm on stage and I'm talking about these are the kind of deals that we should have kept. So Rob is sitting in the back of the room and he says, you guys bought 100 houses a year for like 6 years. What if you had kept 25 of those a year? What would your monthly cash flow be? So I pulled the neighborhood up, pulled up comps right there on stage, and we did the calculation. I'm like, they would be cash flowing about $700 a month each. That's not free and clear. That's with 100% leverage that we bought it at in 2013, 2014. So multiply that times 125, 25 houses over 5 years, it's about $91,000 a month in cash flow. And then I was like, okay.
That's after debt service.
That's after debt service, it's after principal and interest, it's after...
My heart hurts for you.
That's like net, no, and this isn't like back of the math real estate guru, $300 a month cash flow
on
nonsense.
stage in front of people.
This is like net, like the real number, right, that you bring home. And then he says, what about the equity? So then I pulled up that neighborhood. Those same houses, unrehabbed, are selling for $165K. And we were in it for like 80 and some change. So we did the math there. My net worth would be up 12 million. And so he could tell I was getting, because it all just hit me all
The
at once.
blood pressure, his skin
just
turns
like-
into a lobster.
Oh,
Hence,
no.
it's called the meltdown.
It's called the meltdown. That's why I call it the meltdown. So I just looked up, I was on stage, and I'm just like, any questions? Nope. And I literally walked off, picked up my phone, and I called my business partner, Tom, and I said, I'm done. We cannot do this anymore.
Done
Financially,
flipping or done with that strategy?
Done with flipping,
done with him.
wholesaling, the real estate education company. We can, I'm done doing, any minute we spend not building our wealth, building long-term assets, we are literally throwing millions of dollars down the drain.
That's why, and it goes back to what I was talking about, plugging Daniel's show the past couple weeks of you're not a wholesaler, is the fact that y'all kind of got pigeonholed into one strategy, and you were experts at it. 10 to 20 houses a month is killing it in real estate. That being said, you hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. But you get caught up. That's why it's so important to take a pause every once in a while, see if you need to have a micro 90-day pivot or add an additional strategy. I know, Grant, we've talked about, we did a series where it's like, yes, wholesale, have a rental. Sub two, have a rental. Owner finance, and then literally in 10 years, you could have 10 paid off rentals or whatever the strategy was. But it's always using multiple strategies to build that long-term game, because real estate investing is not about the watches or the bling or the Lambos. It's about
We're all poor deep down inside.
Yeah.
Buying more assets.
But it's the ability to chill out 20 years from now and not have to have a care in the world because you have a massive portfolio.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to touch on the base on why didn't you see that math before? Was it just that
That's
you
a good
were?
question.
So I will tell you, when we started those companies, the idea was that we would move into the buy and hold space.
Okay.
And the problem is that we were so busy scaling so what happens? Here's what happens in the real world. You start building this, and Gary Vaynerchuk actually talked about this a couple of months ago. you start building this really great business. Like you're just starting out in this business. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You're just like doing, right? And then about 3 years in, you start to think you're smarter than you really are. You start looking around and going, you know what? We ought to start this business. We ought to start a real estate education business. We ought to start this business. And pretty soon, you're taking the cash flow from each one of these things and you're deploying them in these other businesses to grow their business, right? And you lose sight of the simplicity of how revenue is generated.
Right.
And you start growing. And the problem is when you grow, when you really start bringing staff on, you are going to reduce your income by somewhere between 40 and 60%. And so what happens is you're in this growth mode and you're making like a lot of money and you hit this plateau. And this plateau is going to require a lot of investment capital and it's going to require a lot of human capital. You hire all these people, you bring all these new processes on board. And by the way, every time you double, you have to completely tear your business apart and put it back together again.
Yeah,
like this whole idea, like I can build day one and scale infinitely, does not work. I don't know what industry it works in, it doesn't work in this one. So you're redoing all your stuff right here. But remember, your costs, all your revenue is this, your costs are still going up. So then you finally start turning this corner, and then you keep doing the stair step thing. And we found there's this hump, and I talked about it on the show yesterday. There's this hump at like somewhere between 90 and 120 houses a year that you have to establish three things really well. You need your own in-house construction company, you need really durable lines of credit, and you need a fantastic network. That makes that transition a lot easier. It's really a cost reduction strategy because it makes your transaction costs a little bit less.
But also, like your first 30 to 50 houses go to pay the machine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So if you don't have that massive quantity, you're
consistency.
Inconsistency, yeah.
Like you have to systematize that to even get to that first kind of plateau.
So I wanted to show this image only because I just saw it on Facebook the other day, and it's a perfect analogy.
Oh, that's so good.
It's like, you got the caveman with the square wheels, too busy, and you got somebody else.
Yeah, we're too busy. Never mind. Yeah.
That's so true.
And I will tell you, I had so many guys. A lot of them are reaching out right now because we're doing multifamily stuff, and I'll tell you, we got so many guys that are reaching out to me. They're like, they've been telling me for years, like, you got to get in multifamily, and I'm like, until about the third quarter last year, I'm like, I'm not sold on multifamily. I didn't like where interest rates are going. I didn't like the new multifamily starts, meaning new construction. You guys see it up here. It's even worse up here than it is in Houston, right?
Because I think we get 100,000 new people every year right now.
Yeah, but just driving around, I mean, all the new multifamily that's being put up. And I was like, I don't like it. And then a couple of things happened in the third quarter where that's when we found out that interest rates really weren't going to rise as fast as they are. And then I really started investigating the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac small loan programs between $1 and $6 million for multifamily. And I'm like, wait a minute, you guys will give me, even today, they will give you 4 to 5% interest on a multifamily deal between $1 and $6 million on a 30-year note. And I'm like, you've got to be, it's crazy. So one of the things that we've really been working through the last 90 days is do what capital wants you to do. Like I was always bucking the trend with like, let's build this big single family machine. But all of our capital partners are like, get into multifamily, like I flew out right after Hurricane Harvey, I flew out to LA and met with some of the largest investment banks in the country. And we had conversations about how do you go in and buy 5,000 doors, single family doors in Houston, Texas? Like they wanted to buy entire neighborhoods. And how does that scale? And if you guys have done rehabs before and you've managed single family, like it's really hard to scale that. But conversely, I had those guys that said, oh yeah, but if you want to go buy 10,000 multifamily doors, like we can totally do that. I'm like, what do you mean you totally? Yeah, just go down there and buy them. It was no big deal for them, but they were like, but we'd really like to figure out this single family thing. So the capital markets have spoken for the last 10 years. I guess it really started in about 2012, where they said, we want multifamily and we want all we can get. And so now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? I'll bring it to you. You want to give me a non-recourse loan on a 50-unit apartment complex or 100-unit apartment? Let's go do it. Fine, let's go do it. I give. We'll go make millions of dollars doing that. So
I like to call that a forced pivot.
The forced, yeah.
So we'll make a chart later.
I know, we'll have a full-on diagram of all the different pivots.
You're going to need like a one-page definition guide.
So
right?
we're going to take a quick break. We've got Jason here, we got Casey in here, and we're just talking about more about pivoting and the hows, the whys, the wins, and really get into that. And I know Casey's got a ton of questions she has for you. So stick around. Hope you're having fun. Jump in the comments. We'll get to some of those in a second. I do see a couple people. I know Scott was promoting y'all's podcast. Y'all did.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks everybody for watching so far.
Scott.
Stick around. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We're here on Titanium Tuesday. You've got myself, Ryan Harper, and Casey Dehle pitch hitting for Mr. Argentinian Casey, or Cassio. I always forget her name.
Lovely Cassie.
I know. And our guest today is Jason Bible, and we're talking about pivoting. We just talked about your meltdown moment of you had built this machine of mentorship, single family flipping, and then coming to the realization that, oh shit, if I would have just had multiple strategies or just taken 25 houses a year, that's basically a 20 to 25% of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know,
grow not as fast and pick up, even if you did 10. Like, I mean, the volume of deals that was running through our shop was so absurd not to be buying some of the stuff. And you guys know, and I'm pretty sure you got rental property, right?
not currently.
No, okay.
We're gearing up to.
Okay, so you can pay a little bit more for rentals, right? Because they don't require as big a rehab. You're going to hold on to them longer. So there was so much stuff we were passing on. So we could have still done 100 houses a year and bought another 25 as rental properties, right? It was that. But here's the real problem with that wholesale flip model. You just don't have time.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a great example. I bought an 8-unit apartment complex for $140,000. I'm going to put $100,000 into it. ARV is going to be close to $400,000. It's a complete piece of crap, but I would have never had the time to look at that deal. We're about to close on a 13-unit. I bought for $51,000 a door. It just appraised at $91,000 a door, and it needs about $100,000 in work. It's a 66% deal. We're going to capture $400,000 in equity in that one deal. And then we've got a 27 unit that is the same deal. I think we're going to make about $750,000, and we're negotiating an 18 unit right now that I think we're going to do a condo conversion on. We're probably going to make net $2 million. So now I will tell you this, a lot of gurus will tell you don't do the small stuff, but I think if you have some alternative strategies in multifamily.
I think it's important to do all of it. Like, because I can see people that are, if they have a full-time job, like jumping full on into a multifamily or commercial, that's a little rough. That takes a little like, wait a minute, I'm on the hook for how much?
Yeah.
Versus, you lose your ass on a single family flip, it's like, oh crap, I just lost $20,000.
Yeah.
That hurts. But $20,000 versus like a $2 million or that kind of arbitrage.
I think that's what scares people from going directly into that kind of thing. It scared me for sure, because we talked about that a little bit earlier about what kind of money or capital do you need. You said earlier, I
don't think you need any money.
Well, there you go. But to scale, you do need good money sources.
Yeah, you do. I think this is, so let me give you a good example of this. So I've got a duplex we're going to close, I think on Friday. Duplex with a little mobile home next to it. We're buying the whole thing for like $60,000. Needs $65,000 in work. The gross cash flow somewhere between $2,200 and $2,400 a month. So a good little deal, right? That deal I think has more risk in it than the 13-unit apartment complex I'm closing next week. Like, I think there's more risk in the vacant small stuff, vacant house that has to get I think there's more risk in what you're doing in flipping than there is in the 13-unit apartment. And here's why. That 13-unit apartment complex, even with the loan, the bridge loan we have in place, cash flows day one. Like, literally, you would have to violate the Hippocratic oath, of do no harm. Like, I would have to do worse than the condition it's in now to lose money on that deal. Like, I think that's the part that very few of the multifamily guys articulated to me was, Jason, you understand, we're going into these deals already making money. Like we're just
You
taking
make money
it,
on page one.
and it's hard to screw that
And
up.
I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but like one of the things is, well, first of all, I'm 120, 150% Propelio, so it's not like I get to invest in the real estate much at all anyway. But you hear like the wholesaling competition right now is massive because the market's so good, everybody's jumping in wanting to be a wholesaler. That segues over to now you have a shit ton more flippers.
Yeah.
But now you have way more multifamily investors than I've ever seen in this business. And granted, I'm still young and only about 28 years old, so clearly I've only been in this business for like a month. But but it's just like so and I know people who scream competition. It's like, look, you're just not doing your job hard enough. You're not working hard enough. Or you're not you're just not looking.
Yeah. Because
there's always deals out there. But that being said, if there's only three guys, gals looking for deals versus 3,000. Like I don't know what I'm trying to get to, but the competition factor of so many people doing it.
I think you make a good point, and this is so. Whenever
Did
I get
I?
in, no, this is a good point because this
Accidental point.
No, it's really good because
Accidental pivot.
because
Sorry.
you're about to trip over a question that's really important that no one asks, and that is how big is the market?
Yeah.
So
Accidental question.
I paid all these gurus for years, and first question I would ask him is how big is the market? Like you're a part of some clubs, I'm a part of some clubs. Ask the guy that's on stage how big the market is. They will not have an answer. So I figured out how big the market is. I figured out how big the market is in Houston for single family and multifamily. So what would you guys guess in a month, 100 units and above, multifamily, how many of those sell in a month in Houston, Texas?
How many they sell or your occupancy?
No, how many 100-unit apartment complexes sell between investors in a month in Houston, Texas?
I feel like it's probably bigger than I think.
I have
maybe
no
not.
idea.
Maybe it passes hands more than I
One.
think. 27.
27, okay. 100-unit apartment complexes. You can look this up on CBRE's website. Houston is the largest multifamily investor market in the country. 7 sell in a month.
That's interesting.
And that's, though, by the way, that's like record sales numbers. 7.
But again, okay, that goes to the factor of, because before the past 2 years where multifamily is the sexy thing to do, you only had like maybe 15 guys that were doing the large $20 million deals.
Right.
Because it was that barrier to entry of knowledge, capital, and network. And now it's the sexy thing because you've got all these educators that are in the multifamily game. You also have the residential assisted game.
Yep.
So you have all these people that are teaching. So therefore you have an influx of people. But if there's only 7 deals, and I know in the multifamily you go national,
right?
But there's only 7 transactions per month.
Yes, in Houston. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's a lot or a little.
That's So
Apparently,
you've got.
it's the largest.
Well, I mean, it is. Yeah, it's one of the right. So let's go down the list, right? You got Brad, you got Lifestyles, you got
Corey.
you got all these guys, right? And you can go any weekend across the United States, and there's probably a room full of 300 people that are going to do multifamily. And here's where personal brand gets really important. It's not a business brand; it's a personal brand. You ever go to like an old stadium and you look up at the Jumbotron and there's that one light that's out? Like, does that ever drive you guys crazy? That one light is out.
I don't know. I think in DFW they've been pretty damn good.
Yeah, I know. You guys got on the new
They've
stadiums.
spent about billions and billions and billions.
Yeah.
on
Economy is
stadiums.
good, our light
I think
bulbs
they
are
can
on.
fix their light bulb.
Right,
but
right.
I know what you're talking about.
So
Back
there's
in the
that
olden
one.
days.
There's that one light bulb that's out. So commercial brokers and multifamily owners are getting pounded with the same message from all these gurus. And don't get me wrong, some of these guys are good. I'm going to see Brad sometime next month, right? They're all good, but they produce people who are all the same. These brokers and owners hear the same message over and over and over again. So let's just take for instance, let's say you are somebody in one of the largest multifamily clubs in Houston, and you have a broker that's representing you, and you're a commercial broker who's selling on behalf of owners. And your deals keep busting out. In fact, from this real estate club in particular, these deals keep breaking out. Are you apt to do business with them again? Probably not. So where I think a lot of people run into a problem in multifamily is they sound like also ands. Like you sound like you can tell when we ran Houston House Buyers, I could tell which real estate guru was in town that weekend. Because Monday morning, I would get all these hits on my website from a form email that the guru told them to send out to the cash buyers in their area. So they would Google up, buy a house fast, and it would be our company and Big State, and sometimes Net Worth and New Western and Homevestors. Like literally the top 10 guys in city, we would all get the same email. And then we'd kind of email each other on Monday and say like, well, who do you think's in town? Is it Ron LeGrand? Is it Fortune Builders? Who is it in town that this is their form email? And sometimes I would email these people back and I'd say, don't do this, man. I literally got 25 of this exact same message. And it's the same in multifamily. So when you start to build your own personal brand, that's what distinguishes you in the marketplace. And that marketplace is who's selling you deals, who you're buying deals from, the capital that you raise. I can tell you right now that, and we have already seen it, we got a pocket listing for that deal we're going to do a condo conversion on. We lost out on a deal. It's in a beach community, southwest Texas, or southeast Texas. Really great deal. We lost out on that deal, but we were so good to deal with. It was a pocket listing. The agent called us and said, hey, I got another one for you that's even better than this one, and we're going to give you guys first shot at it.
Well, it's interesting you brought the personal branding, because I know with like Brad, he's like, in my mind, he's like the sexiest human in real estate. And then you've got Corey, and he's like the big kahuna.
Yeah,
you know, so you do have like these things that you latch onto.
Right.
You know, you got Jordan Stanley Payne, who's like, his thing is PBRs, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, I wonder what my thing will be if I have a thing other than
Dr. Pepper and coffee.
There you go.
yeah. So getting back to the pivoting though, is like, you know, we talked about the why, and it seems like, to summarize that, it's just math.
Yeah.
You know, the why is just simply math. So if the math is telling you there's better opportunities over here, you just do that. So then it's like, okay, that's the why, but what's the how? Because the how, there's going to be fear, there's going to be financial, maybe there's a capital resources.
Yeah.
So let's get into the how, because I know I really want to completely just pound away the pivoting.
Why don't we like keep it simple? Like you really went from the wholesale flip, and then you sold all of this stuff off and went in different routes. So what was like the first few things that you did in order to make that happen?
So I mean, it took us 9 months. When you really get down to it, it took 9 months to sell the company, and really selling wasn't the first option. It was just the one that resulted in what was my exit from that business. But I mean, step one is, let's establish what our opportunity cost is. Like, what opportunities are we missing? And when you sit down and say,
I should take notes.
Yeah. so it's what opportunities are you missing in the marketplace? And because we're so busy, and you guys do some events, right? We were doing a gazillion events a month, right? And then you're doing a weekend event, and then you're trying to buy some houses in between there and get stuff rehabbed and raising money and meeting with bankers and all. And you start calculating, okay, well, how many hours what am I spending my time to get this result? Can I be spending less time or the same amount of time and get a different result? And so it's establishing what that opportunity cost is. And then once you establish the opportunity cost, you've got to figure out whether you've got the resources to capitalize on that opportunity. So do I have the expertise? Do I have the capital? Do I have the operational excellence to do it? Which is one of the reasons why I'm running around the countryside learning from all the multifamily guys. I'm like, what am I missing in the multifamily space, right? So once you get all educated up and you've got the resources to do it, then it's applying those tools. So for me, my fear has always been in missing out on opportunity. It's never been in failure. Like,
So you've got FOMO.
Yeah, well, it's a kind of fear of missing out, but my bigger concern is regret, because you can fix just about anything. You can't fix regret, because regret is time-based. Like, I missed this opportunity, and I will never get this opportunity back again. So there may be some opportunities you look at and you're like, you know, like I'd really like to invest in a brewery. Like, I got invited to be a private investor on a brewery. I passed because of some legal issues that they had, but I'd like to do that at some point. But I know that I don't have to go and jump in that right now. I'm waiting for something to happen in the
Because
market.
that's a passion project.
Yeah, it's a little passion project. I think we can make some money, that sort of thing. It'd be a lot of fun. But like, for me, now is not the time. But in the future, it certainly could be. But when I look at certain things in the marketplace as it relates to multifamily, we're under contract for an RV park now. I think that's going to be a great time to get into that. if there's not a time bound on it, then it's no big deal. We can put it off in the future. But if we know that there's an opportunity that we have to execute in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, you really don't have a choice. Like, you really don't.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the opportunity cost and like the time commitment, because you're talking about the events. Because everybody gets mad at us. No, they don't really get mad, but because we used to do monthly events and now we're doing quarterly. And it's like, well, why do you do that? It's like, well, the opportunity cost, and it does take a lot of time.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of resources, and we just pulled the plug. And we're like, look, we'll do quarterly.
Yeah.
And mainly because there's so much effort and so much time that goes into that that we're not able to focus on what it is we actually do for a living, which is software.
Right.
Yeah.
So
One of the things I like to ask people that go to a lot of events, and I'm gonna badmouth events, even though
Not ours. Ours is
I know
badass.
it's awesome. They're awesome, right? What I see people do at a lot of events just startles me, and that is they're networking events, right? And the root word is what? Working.
Working.
So how many of you guys are actually out there working? Like, your event, there's so many people there. It's like the Redneck Country Club event down in Houston.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many people there. You're gonna find a deal. You're gonna find money. You're gonna find a good contractor. But how many people really do that? Like, go with a purpose.
I will agree with you, but then also subtly say our events is different.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I'm kind of glad that you guys went quarterly, personally,
Yeah.
because like my husband and I were sitting down, and what we do that every week. We say, what events are we going to, and what's our purpose?
Yeah.
And what we're like, you'll see us lean over and be like, all right, what's our goal? Meet 2 new people, find 2 private
Yeah, I
money
love
sources.
that. It's awesome.
And I've seen a lot of people at the same events, and they're only around each other. They're not making new friends. But to go every month to the big ones like Propelio, it takes a lot of time
Well,
too.
what I always tell people, and this is not a plug for our events, but when we get back on
It
topic.
should be, because it's great.
What I just want to say is, because I've been in this business for a day or two, and I've been to a ton of events.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'm most proud of our event is not the fact that it's like the biggest, blah, blah, blah. It's the fact that the feedback I get is people are actually doing deals.
Yeah.
People are actually finding capital partners. People are actually
I can
finding
attest
JV
to
partners.
this.
Yeah, and it's all from, like you said, the networking
Right,
aspect
yeah.
of the event. So I really, really appreciate that. But because we're running out of time, let's get back into the how and like maybe summarize that. Other than establishing resources, establishing that opportunity cost of what are some other tips that people can really take into home about how to actually just pull the plug and pivot.
I really do. You sit down and evaluate numerically, like, can we do this? Do we have the operations to be able to do it? Do we have the capital? Do we have all these things lined up? And then once you get all that kind of figured out, and I'm not saying you have to know, I mean, I'm buying multifamily. I'm not even a multifamily guy. Like, I'm figuring this out as I go, right? But I've got enough knowledge here to be dangerous. Let me put it this way. There are enough people around me at this point, brokers, money people, all that are looking at these deals and they're like, Jason, you absolutely need to do this deal. Like, people that, let me put it this way, people that are lending us a lot of money are telling us go do these deals. So we're not doing this in a vacuum. However, at some point, you've got to be patient enough. This is where it gets really weird in real estate. You have to be patient enough to act quickly. And this is where a lot of people mess up. And this is where I hear it. They call it the gotta have it. Like, Jason, I gotta have a deal. Like, I gotta have a deal. And when someone says, I gotta have a deal, the first thing I'm thinking is, you gotta lose money. Like, because you're not patient enough to move quickly. So you've gotta be patient enough to where you go, not a deal, not a deal.
Yeah.
Okay, we have something here.
There's a quote, and it's not, and I don't think it's Daniel's, but Daniel says a lot. So I guess I'll give it to Daniel.
Yeah.
But it's like, good investors, will figure out what they need to do and then do the deal. A great investor will get the deal and then figure it out after.
Oh, that's totally, I
Yeah.
agree with that. I
That's a
agree
good
with
way
that.
to put it.
And again,
Yeah.
it goes back to the speed factor, because if the 3 of us are all trying to buy that cup, and I'm trying to figure out, well, is it actually a cup? And you're trying to find the numbers on the cup, and Case is like, I want the cup. Well, guess who's getting the cup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, because everyone talks about like their analysis paralysis and that kind of I think that's like the most common thing that takes people time to pivot. Like, they freak out and they don't know what they're doing. But you're right. If you know the numbers, like, you always bring it back down to math. If you do the numbers and you see the numbers, then any number you see, you know it works. You might not know how to exit that asset, but at least you know something's there and you grab it.
Well, an interesting thing we could, because right now we're talking about established investors, like pivoting from wholesaling to flipping to multifamily to commercial. What about the full-time job person that's done flip, and it's like doing flip once a quarter?
Yeah.
And it's like, on one hand, they're making maybe say they make $20,000 to $30,000 a flip, and they make $100,000 a year on their job. It's like, at what point they're like, in their head, it's like, okay, I want to do this full time, but I make $100,000 and I have security and I have this. So how much of a role does fear have in pivoting?
So I will tell you this, and this is the same advice I've given for like 5 years now. If you got somebody that's a full-time person, like I run into these guys in Houston all the time. Engineer guy, him and his wife make $200,000, $250,000 in a household a year. They live on 60. They save the vast majority of their income, and they're like, Jason, I really don't like engineering, but I kind of want to get into real estate. And I'm like, okay, this is what you do. You buy 10 rental properties. You buy them with Fannie Mae loans. You may put 20% down on some. Don't try it. People make this business way harder than it needs to be. Go to that neighborhood that cash flows, put 20% down, buy 10 of them. Buy 10 of them in like a couple months. It's not real hard. I mean, you could literally, it takes 30 days to close. You could have a tenant in there as soon as you close on it. Buy 10 of those as fast as you can. And then at that point, you could figure out, okay, and if both you and your spouse are working, you buy 20 of them. Put 10 in your name, 10 in her name. So you got 20 of these little houses, probably out of pocket, $250,000, $500,000, which in the grand scheme of things, you're making that kind of money. It's not a lot of money. You're banking a ton of appreciation. You've got great cash flow. Then at that point, you can decide, what do we do next? Where I see that guy screw up, that guy's trying to wholesale and flip and do all this BS. And here's the problem. A household that's making a couple $100,000 a year, they flip a couple houses and make another 30, 40, 50, 100 grand a year. How much are they going to pay in taxes? Because they're going to hit dealer status with that. Yeah, they're going to pay 40% in taxes. I guarantee you they're going to pay 40% in taxes. Plus, they're probably going to have to pay both sides of FICA and FUTA, right? So it doesn't make any sense financially for them. They're literally going to make an extra $30,000 that year, net. That moves the needle for them about 0%, right? Because they save most of their income anyway. They need to be they really need the depreciation. They need the write-off more than they need the cash flow or the appreciation in that current tax year.
But it goes back to math.
Yeah.
Well, it goes back, it's part math. Well, there's math of the deal, and then there's math of what's practical with how much time you have in your life. You're trying to run around.
You're going to die, folks.
Yeah.
You're all going to die.
Well, you're working 60 hours a week, got a family and all that. Now
You're
we're going to start
dying.
Yeah. Now you're going to send out postcards and yellow letters and meet with MEMA or meet with wholesalers and deal with all that nonsense. It makes no sense at all. It's kind of like, back to your point, know the numbers. We're doing a deal right now. We got 3 little beach houses. Actually 4. They're all right next to each other. And we're going to pay $100,000 over appraised value. 100 grand. They will not appraise for what they're worth now. But they're going to owner finance it for us, and we're going to Airbnb.
Goes back to the terms.
Yeah, and we're going to Airbnb that thing, and we're going to make double the NOI they've made for the last 5 years, just in Airbnb. On the surface, when people say, hey, does the number work? They're looking at what a bank would lend on it. I'm not looking at what the bank would lend on it. I'm looking at what's the bottom line number. Yeah. And that's what I think is most important. Owner finance guys know this really well, right? Because they're like, I could sell it 10 or 15% over, take a little bit higher down payment. It all kind of nets out at the end. They can refinance in 3 to 5 years, and I get this really big payday. They understand that really well. But what I find is when you start to get into some of this buy and hold space, it's like, well, how much can I leverage? I'm like, it's not the leverage, it's the return that's really the most important. So that's when I think about the math, I think about how much time do I have under the resource category, how much time, how much money, how much expertise, and who do I have on my team to be able to do that.
Time, money, knowledge. That's always what it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to be getting final thoughts. We're going to hit the win, because you already talked about it took 9 months to kind of transition out of your old thing. But maybe we need to get into the transition side of it. I know, again, Casey has a ton of questions. So many questions. And we're just going to wrap this up. And if we have any questions in the comments feeds, all of them, we're going to get to those as well. So stick around. Thank you so much for watching. Jason Bible, Casey Dehle, Ryan Harper, Titanium Tuesdays. We'll be right back. Like And we're back. Thanks again so much for everybody for watching. My name is Ryan. I'm filling in for RJ Bates for Titanium Tuesdays. Propelio.com. If you're looking for off-market lead lists, if you're looking for investor-friendly websites, if you're looking for true MLS comps and MLS deal alerts, check out Propelio.com. You get a 7-day free trial, no credit card needed. And besides, we're the guys that are putting this whole thing on. So if you get value from these day-to-day shows that we do, if you're getting value from Jason, from myself, from Casey, or any other thing, and you've never done a 7-day trial,
what are you doing?
I almost went too far, so I'll just stop there.
we signed up with you guys way back in the day, like when y'all just started out, and it is like that. The leads y'all send out with the and I don't know if you have it automated now, but I know VAs were combing different public databases to pull stuff. It's great, and it is fast.
We actually just signed a stupid deal. You know, stupid where you spend a lot of money, like one of those checks.
Yeah.
We actually just signed with those, and that should be in the next 2 to 3 months, where it's a national lead list,
Very
where
cool.
we're going to be, instead of just Texas and Chicago and Phoenix, we'll be like, oh yeah, you're in. I'm not going to say BFE Maryland, but somewhere.
Someone's
we got those
selling
leads.
stuff
We
there.
got leads.
I remember when it was a Google Drive. We'd get the email, and I'd just start pulling it up, and I'm like, "Where's my zip codes?" And then we'd just send them out. It was cool.
So today we're talking about pivoting and Jason's journey. We really didn't get into your full journey, but so we talked about the how, we talked about the why. Let's talk about the when, because I know you already said earlier, and I kind of alluded to it, about the 9-month transition of not dumping, but transitioning out of your old business and doing your new thing. But you also said 90-day windows for market cycles.
Yeah.
Like, so let's get into the when of when to pivot. Like, because you can okay, I know I need to, but how do you prepare, and when do you actually pull the trigger?
Yeah, I think with a business that big, there's some realities. I mean, you can't just get out of that in 30 days. I mean, it just it doesn't really work that quickly, as much as you'd like it to. So really, I mean, we started out with I had a fundamental question for my business partner. I said, if one could liquidate everything and I give you $1 million check, what would you go do with it? Like that. I didn't start out with. I mean, I started out with, I'm not doing this anymore, but we started out with a simple question. That is, somebody hands you $1 million check, $5 million check, $10 million check. What would you do?
$10 million car.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I always wanted a McLaren F1, and they keep getting more and more expensive, and I'm like, I
gotta do a bigger
one
deal.
of these days. I know, bigger deal. And the reason you ask a question like that is because most people believe that the impediment to their dream is a financial problem. And it's actually not. It's really a time and commitment issue. So when I approached my business partner, I said, if somebody could write you an X dollar check, what would you do? And he's like, oh, I'd go in a buy and hold, maybe I'd do a couple little flips here and there, and I'm like, okay, that's where we need to be. So we've really got 3 options here. Option 1 is we just close down these businesses, and then we continue to provide our commitments, because we had 12-month, with RightPath, those are 12-month contracts, so the business needs to run for at least 12 months. So we would continue those commitments until those are done, and we close the business down. And we kind of go our separate ways. Option 2 is we decrease the size of these businesses until such time as that we've got time to execute on these other opportunities. I can go look at apartment complexes. I can spend a weekend at Brad's event. I actually just got back from one of Scott's masterminds a couple of months ago. Like, I can go hang out with Scott for 3 or 4 days.
Scott Carson.
Scott Carson, yeah.
Scott Carson, shout out. What's up?
Yeah, there you go. So if you guys hadn't had him on the show, he's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, we're friends.
Okay, so
Friends and fans.
Friends and fans. Okay.
Friends.
And so
Stop.
we reduce the size of the business to where we can go out and execute on these opportunities, because the funny thing is, we both recognize that we need to get into this space. Like, there was no debate like, we need to do this, right? And then it just came to a point where my business partner said, well, I'd just rather buy you out, and then I'll just kind of figure it out. And I said, okay, it's fine. So that's essentially over, 9 months of discussions to figure out where that was. I mean, you're operating 3 successful businesses at the time, and so the discussion is, well, what's it worth? How do you finance it? Do you part cash, it's all that. And then the legal environment, it's all kind of a big challenge. But that's how the transition works. It's not like, when I got into this business, I had a great career. I was 35 years old. I got promoted when I was 28 to risk manager at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. And I figured out that I wouldn't get promoted until I was 40, because my my senior, the director, he got promoted when he was 40. He was going off to be vice president. Actually, he runs one of the hospitals up here. And so I knew that I had at least 5 years. So for me, I had a great career. When I left, I wasn't one of these guys that says, quit your job because being the working man sucks. I'm like, that's so stupid. So I like my job. In fact, I get invited to their Christmas party and I go every year. Like I still hang out with those people. When I left, they said, hey, if it doesn't work out, just give us a call. We'll find a place for you. And I still have recruiters that call. So I wasn't one of these guys that, there was no way out and there was this, rags to riches story and all that craziness. I just left my job and started real estate. But I had a great career that I left and I could always go back to. But I literally made that decision. My wife and I did a couple of houses and I was like, you know what? I always wanted to do my own business and I'm not going to get promoted probably till I'm 40 anyways. Let's just do it.
But it goes back to math. Like,
it does,
and I don't want to downplay it, but it's like you're looking at a calendar and you're like, I'm 35 now, it's 5 years before I'm even eligible or whatever.
Yeah.
Not eligible, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like 5 years of, I'll get my 5 or 10% bump in pay, but.
There's a lot of people out there, like I know Brent Mott, he always talks about you don't have to leave your job. You can really be successful, just like to your point about buy the 10, just use you're making money over here. To be honest, it doesn't take a lot of hours a week to get involved in real estate investing at all. You can just go to seminars, learn some things, and pick a strategy. Start there.
Well, and I could tell you 6 years ago when I started, real estate education was not sophisticated enough to do this business as a business part-time. It wasn't really until we got started doing some of the education stuff to where I'm like, look, here's the top 5 things you can do to pick up a deal on MLS. Because people always tell me there's no deals on MLS. I'm like, we're buying them left and right. Here is how you establish a target market. Like nobody talked in business terms and to do it in such a way where it doesn't take 60 hours a week.
It's crazy though. I'm glad you said that because, I alluded earlier that, lifestyles, we were watching a video before you got here, like it's from 2010. And the quality of that video, and I'm not shitting on lifestyles. They're a great organization.
Oh, was it the case study I did in 2010?
Yeah, but it's like the quality of that video is
we watched it.
It's like Casey was like, "Is this from the '90s?" Yeah, and it's just insane how even in a short period of 8 years, how technology has changed and how the birth of. I know YouTube's been around a lot longer, but and that's why we're so I don't want anti-guru or whatever, but it's because you don't need to be paying that much money for education.
Even in the last year, it's changed so much because we started and the resources of Propelio and whatnot still weren't as abundant, not as accessible. Yeah. Even in the last year.
Yeah, but anything you want to learn, you can go to YouTube and find it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would love it that it be associated with Propelio, but that being said, you don't have to go to Propelio. Just go to YouTube.
But Propelio is on YouTube.
Hey, there you go.
So, but just to really get in to finish this up, and then we can kind of tangent all the way out and get her questions. All of them, all those many questions.
Whole
but
notebook.
the win of because you had that meltdown, and it was like. So the decision to do it was immediate.
It was already, the decision was already made.
He still had his mic on.
Yeah, I still had the mic on, which was kind of funny.
So, but and then the transition. So, for people going back to the pivoting of going, okay, I need to from wholesale, let's pivot to flipping. Or, if you watch the Daniel series, it's not pivoting, it's more just add those toolboxes. But for this conversation of pivoting itself, how quickly is it once the math is done, you need to pivot, now it's just a matter of transitioning? Or is it I want to do it, but maybe I need a decision, maybe there's that fear, and maybe I don't even know if I'm asking you a question or if I'm just rambling.
Well, so I'll tell you how we made the decision for me to go full-time in real estate. So my wife works for a company, an online, you guys are going to love this, she works for an online knitting and crocheting company called Ravelry.
Awesome.
So she started there 8 or 9, 10 years ago, I think. I don't know. I can't remember at this point. But they started with 400,000 users. I think they just broke 8.5 million. And it's the same, 5 people in the company. It's enormous now.
Thomas?
That's crazy.
So Propelio TV will now be a knitting and crocheting.
That's right, knitting and crocheting.
We're going to
company.
knitting and crocheting because that niche is bigger.
Oh, if you guys want a Propelio blanket, I will ask. She does beanies, man. I love them.
I'm just thinking the market for that is much higher than real estate investing.
Yeah, it's crazy. So. But I'll tell you, the conversation we had, I said, hey, look, I got in this little mastermind group that we put together. It was 6 of us. And I came up with the business model for Houston house buyers, built the pro forma and all of that stuff. And I showed it to the wife, and Tom and I were talking about being business partners. And she was looking at it, and she said, you know what? If you don't do it, you're going to regret it. And I'm like, oh, that is a damn good point.
She got you on that.
Yeah,
regret.
and I was like, if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. And I'm like, you know, and she's like, you can always find another job. Like, it's not the end of the world. So just go do it. And we had, financially, we were set up in such a way that we could go do that. So, you know, I've always got some war with the Bitcoin guys or the Lamborghini guy, you know, and the piles of cash on the bed nonsense, because I get that in my Facebook feed like all day long. And what I keep telling people is, I'm like, you don't understand, that lifestyle is counter to you being able to be a real estate investor full time. Like, that ego erodes the quality of being able to start your own business, right? That whole like bling lifestyle and the Instagram nonsense and all that. And I'm like, that's one of the reasons when we started Right Path, we call it practical real estate education, like practical real estate investing, because it was like, this is how you do the nuts and bolts, right? It's not the get rich quick. It's not, I'm going to be driving Lambos
It's
and
in
all
the
that.
trenches. We
It
say
is
that all the
totally,
time.
this is a blue collar business. A lot of people don't understand that. It is a blue collar business, and you've probably got about 10 years in single family to figure it out before the hedge funds, and you guys, I'm sure, have met with some hedge fund folks. I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to buy something like this. They will buy your IP. They will come and buy someone like me to help them operationalize it. And you folks out there in TV land will not get to play. And here's how I know that's going to happen. It's happened in every single real estate class, investment class, multifamily, apartments. It's happened in RV parks and mobile home parks for Class A. Sam Zell owns a bunch of them in, like, you know, Malibu and in Florida and stuff like that. Storage facilities, all that. Wall Street will eventually step into the single family space in a big way. Not the open door, not with Redfin.
Not like with Zillow.
Not with Zillow. It's going to be
it's perspective, because they've been, like, and even in my short term in this business, the past 3 years, 4 years, they've been doing that. But like Zillow made an announcement last year, we're buying houses, and they're like, we're going to buy 10,000, and people are freaking out. It's like, wait a minute. Math. Go back to your math skills.
Yeah.
Like, there's 10,000 houses in, I don't know, Arlington. I don't know. But I'm just saying, so 10,000 houses across the country is nothing. The last time
it's 100,000 houses a year get sold in Greater Houston. In a year.
In Houston.
And if you bought 10,000 in Houston, that's not that many. Well, it's like nothing.
And I'm going to throw out a number, and I'm just going to preface by saying I am completely full of shit. The last time I looked at this kind of data, and again, maybe my memory's foggy, or maybe I'm just completely making it up, but I want to say, like, the big players in the rental space, in the flipping space, is less than 8%.
Oh, it's way less than that. It's way less.
So I am right. It
Yeah.
is less.
Well, you guys could Google it up. What does Blackstone own right now? 150, 180,000 houses?
Which
I mean,
is
it's not
nothing.
that much.
Yeah, and that's
It's
the point I was
yeah.
making is people get, because I know when B2R came in the market space, everybody started getting scared. It's like, simmer down, people.
It's not that many. Yeah.
Like, you gotta have perspective. When there's 360 million people that live in this country, when you're talking about 100,000 houses, 200,000 houses, a million houses, that's still whatever 1 divided by 300 whatever is.
You know, one of my mentors forever, and we're still good friends, is Bob Emery, who I worked for like 15 years. And one of the things Bob always says is, as compared to what? The single family real estate market is $300 trillion.
It's a lot.
300 trillion.
How many zeros?
That's your golden nugget.
300 trillion.
Billion.
So the idea that somebody, that Blackstone, that goes out there and buys a couple 100,000 houses and everyone's like, woo! It's like, it's nothing. Yeah. It's bigger than the bond market. It's bigger than foreign currency. It's the largest asset class on the planet. 300 trillion.
But if it scares some people out of the investor space, I'm cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's fine. Get
I'm
out.
okay with that.
You didn't have the fortitude for it anyway, so just don't even
I'm like,
bother.
bring it. Let's go.
So, Casey, I know you had some questions. Let's jump in there.
Oh, look
All
at
of
you. I think I asked him all. I think I asked him, and he kind of answered a lot of the questions that I had. To be honest, you're really putting me on the spot right now.
Can you feel the pressure from the LEDs here, the heat?
No, I have so many questions, but I know we're running a little bit out of time.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
No. We'll go
Right?
all day.
Yeah.
Jason said,
I got nothing else
I
to
know, he's
do.
like, what else
do
you
it.
got?
Yeah, I got
But
nothing
I
else to
do
do.
as
want to
long as
know.
we're less than 4 hours, we're okay.
Oh, great. Awesome. Sorry, Jason, for not working so much today. That's my husband. Actually, just a general question I would have then. Okay, you always talk about time, money, knowledge. Everyone talks about. You never have all three. You kind of look to partner with stuff like that. Something that I found interesting, you said, so only seven, commercial properties or multifamily were sold in Houston. Okay, so my question is this, because to me that was a little bit of a wall. So how many people are involved in each of those deals? And would you say that, for the people that are, I love our air quotes, getting into multifamily, are you finding that a lot of them aren't really getting into it, or is there not enough there? Is there a lot there, and that people just don't have the knowledge that's kind of holding them back? Because, I'll be the first one to say, after Will Crozier was on here, I'm like, I want less transactional risks. I was telling you earlier, I want to get out of this, like, a wholesale flipping as fast as possible and kind of go and make that jump. So for me to pivot into that, it kind of scares me a little bit when you say that. Not that much is actually being sold. So is it a matter of partnering with the people that have the other things that we don't have? Or what would you say is the best way to get into that if you feel like the numbers work for you?
So I'll tell you what, my first multifamily seminar I ever went to, you guys I'm sure know what it is, they're headquartered in Houston, and I was sitting there in the back of the seminar room. It was full. It's one of these like 300 people in the room. First day they do single family, second day they do multifamily. And
third day they take your firstborn.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's not that bad. I think they're pretty reasonably priced. But they're great. They're a great organization. Great people over there.
I don't know who you're referring to.
Okay, that's okay.
I was just kidding.
It would have been the one I did the case study for. So they're a good group of folks. And I'll never forget. Yeah. I'm sitting in the back of the room, and this was my first seminar, first time I've been exposed to this. And I can't remember who was doing the presentation, but they said, who in here would want to be a lead investor? So the person that finds the deal, that works the deal, that does all that.
Deal sponsor.
And remember, there's a couple hundred people in the room. It was me and another guy that raised our hand. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And then he said, well, how many of you guys just want to put your retirement money into it, put up the money to do it? Everybody else raised their hand.
That's gold.
And that's what I realized. And then I was at a...
You're like, can I get your email?
Yeah. Well, you know what I thought was interesting? I was sitting on a Quest panel, and we were both on the panel, and Brad Summerrock was like two or three seats over, and he said, how many people in here are in a deal or one of my students? And like half the room stands up. And I'm like, these guys can't all be... Because the way I look at, when I think I'm doing real estate, like I'm the one controlling the deal, like I'm doing the deal.
That's what I was talking about before, about the competition level of, there's only like 15 to 20 real players doing in that space, and then everybody else, and I'm not, this is not shade, this is not whatever, I'm not talking shit.
Air quotes?
Yeah, I'm about to throw quotes up. It's like, I'm a multifamily investor. Are you really, or are you just a capital contributor person, funder?
That's what, when you
go just lending your money to a deal? There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, here's what I'll tell you, and this is why that's important. So I'm looking around the room, and I started having conversations with these guys at the hotel bar, and I'm like, so what do you do? Oh, I'm a partner in 10,000 doors. And I'm like, well, if you don't mind me asking, like, how much you contribute, all that, what do you get involved? So a lot of these people lend their money in real estate, right? And so here's the problem with what we do, meaning us and the folks that are watching here collectively. There is going to come a point when we do not want to do this anymore, or that we can't be as active as we are.
When will that be?
Yeah, I don't know. But there'll come a point when we just don't.
Not today.
Yeah, not today. But there'll just come a point when maybe you sell Propelio to B2R, right? And you guys get a big giant check. And you're like, what do I do? I want to sit at the beach. And then you go, well, I'm just going to call Jason down in Houston. Hey, man, you buying any apartments? We got like 10 mil extra sitting around the house. We literally get those phone calls right now. And, I'm getting out of this deal in California. I mean, that's really when I'm being in California. It's talking to 1031 people. Hey, I just got out. I got $7 million. I literally need to put it back into something like immediately. So you will get to that point. Where the maturity continuum is for real estate investor, it ends at lending. Like, that's what a lot of people don't understand.
That's a really good
way
way
to
to put
ends
it.
at lending. It doesn't end at multifamily. It doesn't end at commercial. The Krebs cycle, if you will, branches out to lending. And that's when you're done. And if you look at
How many years does that take?
Well, it depends. It just depends on when you're done, right?
Yeah, I guess that's
it
true.
could be for some people it's a few $1 million, for others it's $100 million.
Back when, and I've talked about this on the show a lot, about being in the box, and I'll just quickly summarize, is in my previous real estate career, I thought I was a part of a major group, a large group of people, and this is before I realized that there was all these cliques of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like I was at an event last night for like 2 minutes where half the room had never even heard of our event, you know. So, and it's crazy to me that people that are in our town don't even know about who we are, which is awesome because that just means I need to step up my marketing game.
Yeah.
But my point being is the box I was in was there really wasn't creativity when it was just wholesale flipping and rentals, wholesale flipping and rentals, and then what the graduation level would be eventually become a hard money lender.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that was the path. That was the graduation per se. So it's awesome that you're bringing that up.
Well, and I think when you look at, if you were to look at a timeline, like
Pivoting,
yeah.
to hard money lending.
Well, yeah, pivoting to hard money lending. If you were to look at what really drives a lot of returns in marketplaces is population, and it's population and dollars driving into certain asset classes. So, for example, we know for an absolute fact that two things are driving all the gains in the capital markets right now, stocks and bonds, that sort of thing, is there is more money in the system, whether that's from the Fed or not, doesn't really matter. There's more people contributing to retirement, so it's putting more money into the system. Here's what a lot of people are missing. After the millennial generation, our population will begin to shrink, meaning those dollars are going to start to get concentrated into smaller and smaller groups, and those dollars are going to have to be deployed somewhere. That's why you see all this money, at least over the last 5 or 10 years, that was running to emerging markets, like India and China and Russia and some of these other places. Now those dollars are coming back because they were never really great places to invest in the first place, and you're seeing multifamily from a cap rate standpoint decouple from all of the commercial real estate assets. That's one of the reasons why multifamilies had such a higher aggressive growth rate than some of the other commercial assets. And as that continues to happen, those dollars are going to get tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's going to take cap rates lower because those dollars got to go somewhere. That's why Wall Street is scrambling right now to find yield. They're just looking for any place they can. B2R is not in the single family real estate business because they want to be a landlord. They're there because they can make money. And if they can return to their investors 2 or 3%,
I think they
they
changed
can
their
make
name,
5.
by the way.
Oh, did they name
I
it
don't
something
know.
else?
I think they're not B2R anymore because I haven't seen their
know.
marketing in like over 2 years.
Yeah,
So-
Colony Finance, all those guys. It's all the same
Yeah,
group of
yeah.
people, right? But they're all those
I
dollars.
just didn't want
end
to
up
get
somewhere.
plugs if something doesn't exist
Yeah,
anymore.
they're like, who's that? The likelihood you'll ever get a loan from B2R is probably slim to none
Oh,
anyway.
yeah.
So yeah, it's tough. I'll tell you, we looked at some refinance portfolios from them. It was just tough. So
Did you have any more questions? Because you had so many.
you did. I see my name's
They
in a
might have
box
been.
right here.
He did. Your name is in a box.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're probably more personal questions. But
Well, go for it. We got.
Well, honestly, I think that's honestly the big knowledge for me there was like honestly how many people are being the deal sponsors, because I'm the type that's like, yeah, I like to control my deals, and I think that's what's setting. I'm noticing the people that really just want to. I mean, hey, if you have the money to throw at something, great, you're an investor. That's fantastic. That's the dream. But I think in terms of wanting to control the deal are going to be the people that are going to be able to grow past these little, stagnant kind of places in our economy. So what would you say for somebody like, I don't know, myself, I like the numbers, I like controlling the deal, I like to grow and adapt as best I can. What would you say would be one thing that you would consistently look at in terms of being able to predict these like 90-day shifts, or what kind of indicators in the economy or in the market, micro or macro, did I say that? Micro, macro, would you really keep an eye on if you were that kind of person?
So I will tell you, one of the challenges in being in Texas is we are extremely spoiled.
Yes.
We are. This market is absurd. And the reason it's so crazy is that, Ryan, you made the point earlier, there are people moving here. In fact, if you guys Google Texaplex, the Texaplex plan, and it's absolutely 100% accurate, we are essentially going to add the equivalent population in the entire state of Ohio between Denton, west of San Antonio, and east of Houston, which is Beaumont. That triangle, we will add 18 million people in less than 20 years.
Wow.
So literally, if you can fog a mirror and hold on to a piece of real estate for more than a couple of years, you will make money. It will be incredibly impossible not to make. Back to your point, you got bailed out of that deal because of appreciation. One of the reasons I think the easiest thing to be in this business is a landlord. It's a joke how easy it is. You can hold on to a piece of real estate for 4, 5, 6 years, you're gonna make a tremendous amount of money. It's not rocket science. Get your building filled up, get your house filled up, rent it out, make a little cash flow, and when you sell that thing, you're going to make a killing. And there's a big problem in Texas right now. We cannot build affordable houses anymore. We can't. It's impossible. So what I look at in submarkets is, what can I buy below the median home price that I can hold on to for 5 years that they can't build any more of?
Below the median, yeah, that's good.
Flooded neighborhoods below $200,000 have no problem selling in Houston. No problem. Even in troubled areas where companies are moving out, no problem selling those houses. When you start flipping houses, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000, that I think is the market that's ripe for a correction. Mm-hmm. New construction at that price point. It's happened already up here. That is ripe for I was chatting with one of my wife's cousins. We come up here once a year, do a big Thanksgiving thing. And he told me, he said, our house in like 4 years is appreciated like $150,000. It's like, it's absurd. It's a 4-year-old house, right? In part because of the people who are moving in. However, below that median home price, the affordable house market, there's not much change. So I'd say it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're a landlord, my biggest concern is, is there enough time for me to buy enough assets in this submarket to meet my goals? So if I want $10,000 a month in cash flow, in net cash flow, like real profit, can I buy 40, 50 houses in this submarket before it gets too expensive? Because I think people way underprice the ability to look at a market and really know a market. Like they market all over the place.
Sure.
Like I'm doing pre-foreclosures and I'm doing all of Harris County. I'm like, that's crazy. It's impossible to be successful at that. I'd rather be really good at Bear Creek. Or Garland would be a great one. Yeah, like Garland and these 3 neighborhoods. Like I want to know these 2 zip codes. Like I went in and bought, so earlier this year, tail end last year, I bought 4 duplexes. I literally told my agent, I don't care what we pay for these things. In a submarket in Houston. There's only 40 of them in this little submarket. I bought 4, I own 10% of that market now. And we're going to push the comps in there. But the other crazy thing, this is what most investors miss, it's got the lowest property taxes in the city. So as you guys know, being from Texas, property taxes are a huge issue.
Huge issue.
The rate is the absolute lowest in the city. And I said, anything that pops up in there, I don't care what the price is, buy it. Because I know long term, we're gonna make so much more money, even if our rents are the same, because our tax rate is literally half.
My data brain's going crazy right now.
I thought about teaching a whole class on what I call tax rate investing, because I think that's more important in Texas than anything else, is the tax rate on these things. But so you start to really know your submarket, and then you look at, okay, what are the things that could cause issues in my submarket? Then you can decide. Then you could see what those variables are over the 90-day period that could change. Jobs are obviously an issue. Physical, natural catastrophes. Although you guys just have tornadoes up here, we don't get the real wild.
It's been a while
since
y'all got. We have bad hail too.
It's been 2 or 3 years, I think, since y'all had a really bad.
The Garland, like we're just.
You better knock on wood, Jason.
There, yeah.
Hope nothing comes.
Well, it's so funny because I get these hedge funds that are like, we're pulling out of Houston to go into Dallas because there's less natural disasters. I'm like, you don't know Dallas that well, dude. But I think those are the things you got to look at. You got to look at what your submarket is, and then what are the vulnerabilities there. I think it's when you get into wholesaling and flipping. Back to whoever it was that had mentioned, the transaction risk. You have 2 really big risks in wholesaling and flipping, and it's that temporal risk. It's a timeline risk and a transaction risk. You have 2 really big risks. I can't.
Exactly.
Literally, as a landlord, I just need to be able to get somebody in and get the property refinanced. Right. And even if I can't get a refi, I can get a private lender. Like I can get a partner, I can figure that thing out, right? The problem is you really almost only have one exit when you're flipping, right? Maybe you can do Airbnb and some of these other things, but right now those are stopgaps because that's we're still figuring out what that actually looks like long term. So I think you've got to identify what that submarket you're in is, what your exit strategies are, and then what are those things that make it vulnerable. Could be natural disaster, job loss, change in financing. Like if you're doing houses above, what do jumbo loans start at? $433,000, $450,000. Like what happens to the credit markets for jumbo loans above $500,000? Right. I'll tell you another one is the insurance market. People way discount this. You have to have a different kind of insurance above $500,000. So for flippers and for homeowners. So you've really got to figure out what that market is and then really identify what those risks are. But it's the same as anything else. And in Texas, we got so many jobs. I mean, it's and it hasn't stopped in
And we're really
30
like
years.
we're strangely insulated on certain things, but a good way to look at your insulation on like kind of your strategy, Michael. You're right. If you have rentals and you have that appreciation, you always have a cash source.
Oh yeah,
Always.
Yeah.
And you just brought up insulation, which could be a whole another show, you know, and you just like, oh, let's
We're
throw that
coming
out
back.
there.
Yeah,
Part
I was
two?
like, damn
Part
it.
two,
I
yeah.
know. I'm sorry. It's all my question.
As far as, did you have any other questions or any final thoughts, or do you want final thoughts on insulation?
Well, I'd like to get there because I think it's very interesting, and I don't think enough people getting into this industry think big enough to think long term. And I bring this up, I think, every time I'm on this show. Are you building the hobby or are you building a business? And what factors you're going to look at in investing are two completely different things. So I think that I so appreciate you bringing in that kind of just knowledge, very practical knowledge. You stay true to your brand. Very practical on how, like, what to look for and how to pivot. To me, that's huge because I've been, like I said, been doing this for a year. Like a lot of people watching, they want to learn, what do I do now? I'm tired of chasing the deal, so this is gold. I really appreciate you sharing all that kind of insight with us.
I think to your point, when you talk about insulation, is it a difference between a business and a hobby? I can give you two numbers that can tell you the difference if you're running this as a business or a hobby. If your flips are making you at least 20%, meaning if you're selling a house for $400,000 and you're making at least 80 grand, you're running it like a business. So that's ARV, by the way. If you're selling 400 grand, 400 grand, you should make about 80. And if you're a landlord, if your DSCR, your debt service coverage ratio, is better than 1.25, you're running it like a business. If it's below, either one of those numbers, it's hobby. And the problem is that whenever I've looked at so many different investors' business, when they fall below those two numbers, they don't have enough margin for mistakes or expansion. And that's when you see guys and gals just completely fall out of this business. Foreclosure, go back and get a job. They don't understand why. They blame it on the market. And it's like, you need that margin. You need that insulation cushion to make it through.
That's a fire nugget.
That's a
Thomas.
fire nugget, I think.
Oh, we have fire nuggets?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But like
that's awesome.
having enough margin for mistakes and for expansion.
Yeah.
Because too often people just think of chasing the next deal.
Right. Yeah.
The next deal.
Right.
And yes, people do think about the mistakes, but they don't think about growth. They don't think about the pivoting.
Well, they're too busy looking
exactly.
forward. We've been in that too, and we've pulled back to re-strategize, look at our opportunity costs, my husband and I, which caused our pipeline to drag slightly. But now we're positioning ourselves to pivot ourselves. So I think that's great to look at it that way.
So Jason, what are your final thoughts on this topic? Any more final like nuggets, or just like, oh shit, I forgot that one thing?
I think you've really got to you got to begin with the end in mind, the old Stephen Covey quote. I see a lot of people get into, we were chatting about this earlier, right before the show got started. People get into flipping and wholesaling because they don't have money for buy and hold. Well, let's solve the money issue. Let's not change what our goal is simply because we have a money problem. Let's solve the money problem and let's go after what we really want. So I think you've really got to figure out exactly what you want. And what you want is not necessarily a financial goal. It's what's going to make you happy. And there's a lot of like weird stuff in this business about passive income and retirement and playing golf and doing stuff. Here's the reality. Most of us are relatively young. Like, we're not even close to retiring, right? You can only spend so much time on the beach. You can only play so many rounds of golf. So what is it that you want to contribute to society? Because that is ultimately going to make you happy. If that's building a real estate business that supports you financially so you can do those things and maybe they don't pay financially, that's fantastic. But I'm really pounding the notion of what is it that makes you happy, and let's build a business around that. Let's build a career around that. Not let's build a career to retire, because you really don't want to retire. Most people don't really want to retire. They want to work and contribute. So what is it that makes you happy from a contribution basis?
Yes.
Casey, final thoughts on the topic?
I thought I already gave them.
I'm just giving you another opportunity.
My final thoughts on this are: if you're new in this business, watch this interview for real. If you're just tuning in, like just on replay, because I think I'm so grateful to have this at the very beginning of mine, and I'm not 3 years in wondering what happened in the last 3 years
Or
and why
20.
do I have nothing.
I've met people 20 years in, and they still haven't figured it out.
So a lot of people will look at people only in the industry for a few years and just kind of discount them because they've struggled for 20 plus years. You don't have to. This is gold. This is great stuff, and you can apply it in any market that you're in. So I appreciate it.
And for me, it comes down to math. Like pivoting is all about math, opportunity cost of not pivoting, and then also living with regret.
Oh,
like,
wow,
and I know that overly simplifies like the past hour and a half of doing this, but I mean those are huge. Like too much of real estate or all real estate should be math. Take the emotional component, throw it out the door. Unless you're talking about the regret or their opportunity
and
cost.
don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Don't make it more complicated.
So as far as like doing business, what you're looking for, how can people get a hold of you? What are you looking for in business, and as far as ways that we can help you out and expand?
I don't know what to tell you. So y'all have deals, you can send them to me.
But I mean, that's commercial multifamily or just multifamily?
I'll look at
single
multifamily.
family.
We're looking at we'll do single family. I look at single. We're building a little company called Mr. Texas Real Estate, and it's a bunch of real estate agents, and we're going to represent the guy and gal that work 60 hours a week, and they want to go find rental properties, and we're just going to go out and buy them for them. But really, that's it. If you guys have deals, send them over to me. Send them personal message on Facebook is fine. I do all my own social media stuff. That's why it's so poorly done. So until we hire somebody to do it, but that's why my emails are always grammatically a mess and all that. But send me a note if you guys have deals. Send it to me on Facebook, and y'all are welcome to follow my Facebook profile. Everything is wide open, so you guys can see all the stuff that I'm doing
in
there.
Here too.
Okay, perfect.
Casey, what are you looking for?
What am I looking for?
How can we help you?
Yeah, how can we help you?
I'm looking for private money because I got some deals. So yeah, if you guys want, or bring us deals too. Well,
the Quest Trust meetings, is it tomorrow here in
Wednesdays?
Actually, I just went to one with Quest on private money last week.
Okay,
we did one there. Yeah, and a really good tip
of
information they gave us was Haley Gant was like, stop looking to investors for money. Like, there's plenty of other people with money out there that don't want to get involved, like you said.
Yeah.
That want to do it. They just don't know where to put it.
Here's your tip on that. Instead of going to real estate networking events, go to doctor events, go to dentist events.
Expand your
If you
network.
see a doctor conference, is that what they're called? That's the technical term.
Yeah.
Like go
Walk
hang
into the
out
lobby
at the
of a
bar,
hotel.
hang out the lobby of a bar,
Yeah.
a bar hotel bar that's doing a doctor thing. It just be, I'm just hanging out. Oh, you're a doctor. Give me your money. That kind of thing.
Expand your network,
I will
for
tell you
sure.
guys a little secret. Maybe this will be the last flaming golden nugget here.
Better be flaming.
Stand by.
Is that what people don't realize as real estate investors? You are the rock star of the business world.
Yeah.
I have yet to meet one person that says, "Oh, I don't want to do real estate." Every person I talk, in fact, I don't even talk about real estate when I first meet somebody. They say, like, "Hey, what do you do?" "I'm in the real estate business." And then when they find out you're an investor, they're like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And then there's like this crowd of people, and you're like, "What is going on?" You are literally the rock star of any room. So it's not like you've got to be real loud and forceful. You're like, what do you do? I flip some houses, and all of a sudden you'll have 10 people like, "Well, how does it work? I've watched those flipping shows and all." So you can go virtually anywhere and strike up a conversation with somebody.
And just on that point, just subtle plug. Well, it's not a subtle plug; it's a full plug. Our next event, May 14th, we're actually the theme of it's going to be raising capital.
Oh,
awesome.
So we're going to have Troy Fullwood and Corey Peterson both talking about raising
Great.
capital.
I think that's a big thing. It's a money
Troy's
problem,
done
right?
billions.
Yeah.
Billions.
So yeah, that's good.
Cool.
Pretty sweet.
Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, thanks for having me on,
everybody
guys.
for watching.
Great.
Again, as far as what I'm looking for people to sign up and try Propelio.com.
Do it.
The people that put this stuff on. Propelio.com if you need comps, leads, websites. If you are a broker in a market we're not in, or you know of a broker in a market we're not in, send me a DM and let's get in your market. We would love to do business. We're rapidly trying to expand in every market we can, and that takes the ability to partner with brokers. If you haven't tried, you know how I promote our events and like I publicly shame people.
Oh yes.
I'm gonna start doing that for subscriptions.
I like it.
I'm
I gotta register before I get shamed.
Yeah, I'm gonna in a loving way.
In a loving manner.
In a loving manner, I'm gonna start like, hey, Casey, have you tried Propelio? No, why not?
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, again, thank you, Jason.
Thanks for having me on. This was
loved
awesome.
it.
I loved
Casey
it.
loved it. If you like Casey on here, drop in the comments. If you like Jason, drop in the comments. That's the feedback we get. If a guest is good, if a host is good. If you don't like me, I don't care. But anyway, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time tomorrow for Grant Teach Something. Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.